partnership with Elta Healthcare District. And I look forward to meeting you and partnership with you as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Anybody else for public comment? Maybe Zoom? Okay, with that, we move on to item number 5, additions to the agenda. The board may add an item to the agenda if upon 2/3 vote, the board finds that there is a need for immediate action on a matter and the need came to the attention of the board after the posting of the agenda. Board members, do you have any items to add?
Oh,
Okay, no items to add. Number 6, potential conflict of interest. Any board member who has a potential conflict of interest may now identify the item and recuse themselves from discussing and voting on the matter. Any conflict of interest, sorry. All right, item number 7, approval of past minutes. This date at December 14th, our 2023 regular meeting.
I make a motion to approve.
We have a second. Has everybody had time to review the minutes? Okay, I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Item number 8, informational items. Item number 1, treasurer report.
Okay, so as of today, our balance is $492,355.65. So I'm gonna go over, I'm gonna read through the checkbook because my financial reports reflect off what I see on the online banking and images, which I know that I write, but I always double check with the checkbook before I present a report. So I'm gonna read through the checkbook because there's a discrepancy. And I'm gonna read back from June, the checks that were written. Checkbook. I'm gonna start with check 1613. And that was for our attorney for $247. Invoice number 478277. Check 1614 was to the Selma Business Collaborative. It was a grant proposal for $10,000. And their ID was 83-404260. Check 1615 is where I highlighted for the board. This check was written for the Selma, the SPOA. It was also a grant proposal approval at the time under the ID number 770158892. However, this check was voided. I don't know if you remember, Kenneth, because we couldn't make a check to them because at that time it was, their tax ID was, right.
They didn't have a 501c3
Yes.
status.
Okay, so a new one, and they were aware it was supposed to be voided, that 10,000, okay? So then, I'm going over the images and that check was cashed. Well, it was supposed to be given to me, when I went back to write them the new one. let me just read the rest of these real quick. 1616 to the Selma Boys and Girls Club for 5,000. That was also a grant proposal. 1617 was to American Swim, but that was that was a void. 1618 was a void. 1619 was Leon's Computers for 982. 1620, and that invoice number was 8524.29. 1620 was 637.83. The invoice number, Leon's Computers 8550 was the invoice. 1621 was the Project Surf Camp. That was for the ESYN. Their ID number was, that was also grant proposal 01318-01354, I believe was the receipt they gave me. That was for $750. 1622 was Sederma. That was our board insurance, $3,272.35. Invoice number 74158. 1623 was attorney fees, $1,641.50. Invoice number 479364. 1624 was Leon's Computers for $1,920. Invoice 8572. 1625 was to our auditor, JWT Associates LLP, $4,845. Okay, so 1626 was to, for our timesheet for our administrative secretary, $1,275. 1627, timesheet number, timesheet number. One of them was a void then, because I have. Voided one, 1626, 1627. Let me see on the statement real quick. What is it? Mine. $1,207.50. So 1628. 1626. Wait then. I have to go there's just a few more until I get to the one in question I already said. I'm getting to the one where we rewrote it to the. Or you want me to just go to that one? Because they have to.
Perhaps what you could do is we could attach this as a written report
You want to table it and then, or you want me to explain what happened?
for the specific check,
Okay.
correct?
Okay, so, okay, that's fine. So check 1614, which I gave you guys a copy, was back written on 5/24, right, for $10,000 SPOC. At that time, it was voided because what what you spoke about, okay, so at that time, the president was aware, okay? We were gonna void it when some time went by and then the new check was written for it was check 1631 to the Selma Enhancement Community Association. That was the new check with the new tax, that new tax ID 31153769 for the grant proposal for the snack bar. That was written for 10. When I took this check, I went and I remember speaking to a female named Robin, who I have in my phone as Robin Chief's Assistant, Selma PD. I told her, I'm taking the new check, I need the old check, and I also need a receipt from the Selma community. Well, this is what I was given, and it was, you know what I mean, there's nothing in it, and then I'm looking back at the checks saying that I just barely got, and going back referencing it to the checkbook, which I know I voided, and I know, and I spent like getting a headache, just like I know there's errors, but this is a $10,000 check that I know clearly SPOA knew that it was a void, and they cashed it June 2nd, and they also cashed the second one that was written. And so I'm kind of upset about it because it shouldn't have happened. I mean, I understand it could be a total error and absolute, and I totally get that, but I mean, I tried to call them and nobody got back to me, and I'm just wondering how we're gonna fix that. Or who's gonna handle it, or,
We can work together and I'm happy to send a demand to try to get that back.
and I just think that, I don't know if somebody new took over and then maybe the envelope was just misplaced and they saw it and maybe somebody opened, I don't know. I'm thinking that's maybe what happened because I don't even know if this girl's still there. And, that's what, but as far as everything out, and the only checks that still haven't cleared is the American Swim. As far as the bank can only see, when I went in yesterday to do the deposit, they can only see up to August. So the other girl sent me from June. So they can't tell if those checks have cleared. And from the last meeting, they weren't cleared. So I don't know what's going on with those 2 checks that we made to American Swim. Remember, the Selma Rec Department sent payment to, and they want a refund. So it's like, oh, the checks were sent, you know how we paid the business or they went to American Swim, 2 checks. In cash, or they haven't cleared because from what I understand from the bank yesterday, they said they weren't. So I don't know what's going on with those 2 checks that were. And every time I call over there, their accounting department's never available.
Amy has some information on the checks.
Thank you. Yes, I believe when we spoke earlier, we weren't sure why the checks were written to American Swim, originally from the healthcare district, because they're not the nonprofit. They're the ones that we pay. We use the Selma Enhancement Corp. So we did pay them after we received the check made out to us. So those checks should not clear. Those we were told were voided. So I'm not sure where those are on that, but American Swim will not be cashing those checks because they should have never received that in the first place. Those checks were to come to us. We added it to our invoices to show what we paid so that there was transparency in what was billed to us and what we paid. But no, those
Always
checks should
made it
not be
out.
paid. Yeah.
For the swim, we've never made it out to the city.
Okay. Well, we were told that we had to cut the check from the Selma Enhancement Corp because that's where we received it. We were told that the healthcare district can only write checks to nonprofits and not to an organization or a business.
It can write checks to organizations for reimbursements, but for contributions that are for services, they would go to a 501c3. We can work on that a little bit.
Can we,
Thank you.
from learning from this, can we enact like a policy and procedure protocol for future,
Well, aren't
Yeah.
we supposed to discuss that?
Yeah, we'll be discussing.
okay,
that
good,
in the
good, good,
future.
good, good.
Well, that's. Sorry.
And that's listed as an information.
You did get the balance, right? You guys got the balance for today? That's
The 400 and,
492, 5565.
yeah,
I wrote it on your paper. It's in.
Thank-
the
yeah.
office.
thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Letitia. All right, for informational items, we have number 2 on our agenda, community services, information regarding the open swim fees. It just had you stay up there.
Since,
Yeah.
All right, good evening. Board members, thank you for giving me a few moments to speak today. I did want to talk about last summer's swim. We had 1,205 Selma residents take part in our swim program in the summer of 2023. The numbers were up from previous years, so we're very excited to see that. The unfortunate news is that the school has informed us that the pool will be closed this summer for repairs and resurfacing. So we will not be having the swim program this year. We're hopeful to bring it back the following year, but unfortunately this year they will be doing some resurfacing. So we will not need, or we will not be making any requests at this time for that program. However, I did provide you guys with our updated activity guide for 2024. It includes all of our major events that we will be doing here in the community, in addition to some flyers of some things that we have going on. So if there's at any point that the board would like to partner with some of our activities, we obviously welcome any partnership, collaboration, et cetera, the more that we can do for our community. In addition to that, our department is also looking at things that we can do during the summer to kind of take the place of the swim program. However, we haven't, we were just notified about the pool, so we're still trying to figure that out. But I'm open to any questions if you guys have any.
I have a question. I remember when you came requesting funds for the swimming fees or
Yes.
you were going to give us an update on the Measure K funds that you should be
Yes.
receiving from the city council.
We do, and we get the general funds. I believe I showed you that. I came and I showed you our budget. And so basically what that is it's just a general transfer. A percentage of those funds go to the Art Center, a percentage of those funds go to Fund Recreation, and a percentage also goes to our Park Improvement Fund, which if you've seen, we've done a lot of park improvements over the last year. We're also getting ready to break ground on the new playground equipment at Brettlinger, as well as continuing to work on Thompson Park. So those funds, as I showed you in there, the percentages, they show the transfer in from the general fund, and we do utilize those funds across our department.
Okay. You get those once a year?
Those get transferred in at budget, yes. Yeah.
Which
So
is in
we're July
June?
1.
July.
Yeah, we're fiscal. So
Okay.
July 1 to June 30th.
Okay.
Yep.
Question on your activity guide for 2024,
Yes.
youth sports. Now, are these sports that are listed here, sports teams, are they getting funds from?
No,
of
so
any
they're
kind?
either listed on there as the contact information for the particular league. So they're either city sponsored leagues, or they're leagues that use our fields and utilize our properties within the city. So we wanted to have, as you guys can see, and I'll touch briefly on, we went through a complete rebrand with my department. One of the things that we did is, in my professional opinion, we lacked a little bit of direction and we lacked identity. And so we went through this rebrand, started to really ID what we needed to do in our community, what programs we needed, services. But in order to do that, we really needed to have a comprehensive guide of the things that were going on within the community. So hence this activity guide. We've never done anything like this before. And it just gives us a full year picture of what we're doing. And now we're continuing to add more. We've added several programs. In addition to that, what you see there is just those annual, every year type things that we have going on.
Good. I see here, senior center events. Is the center open?
It is not where you know it. The senior center is still closed down for repairs. We anticipate that opening by the end of summer, but we are operating out of Pioneer Village. We have the Danish building, the little center next to it, that we are operating and running services out of. So we still serve lunch daily. We still have activities, bingo, and things like that. It's a little smaller scale, unfortunately, but we didn't want to let the lack of the senior center prohibit us from providing those services.
Just real quick on the swim, back to the swim.
Yes.
Did those people who went to go swim, they all swam for free, or?
I think there was a little over 205 that had to pay the $2 because I think you guys paid for $2,000 worth of it. So there were a few that paid, but we were able to accommodate them, the majority of them, which was fantastic. And they definitely utilized it. We saw an increase in numbers, so it was very, very helpful. Awesome. Thank you guys.
All right, item number 3, Adventist Health, RFP partnership report. Hey,
Good evening, Council. Don Calhoun, EDICU Director. I'm really pleased to announce that we have officially onboarded our licensed social worker. She's in her 3rd week now. The first week, she was able to touch base with several patients in the community. I believe half of those were directly Selma residents. We were get 50% or so into the clinic for follow-up care. We had discussed the continuum care and how important that is to not just the patient, the hospital, but also the community. And I'm excited. I believe we found the right person, so I won't take too much time. I'll introduce you to Raquel Caraway, our licensed social worker.
Hello, Council. Such a privilege to be here. So my name is Raquel Caraway. I am the new licensed clinical social worker right here at Adventist. So my primary goal will be 3 days in the ER, 2 days in clinic, providing direct psychotherapy to patients, and then in the ED, doing some case management, some suicide screening, depression and anxiety screening, and seeing if they're wanting and willing to engage in services, direct services. The awesome thing about this position is that I get to be the actual clinician that gets to treat them. And so when they come into the ED, they see me, well, right now they literally see me all over the screens because I'm a new employee, but they get to see me in person. I connect with them, and then hopefully that time and that interaction in the ED will bring just some warmth, and hopefully I build some good rapport in that initial encounter, and then they can come and see me at the clinic for direct services during my clinic days. And so it's a great hybrid position. I'm very excited about it. I've been doing social work since 2000 and master level social work since 2013. And I've had my license for almost 6 years so far. Before that, I was also doing direct psychotherapy at different agencies. So I've worked for Tulare County, I worked for Fresno Unified School District, and more recently a nonprofit. And so I've been providing some direct mental health services to a variety of individuals, from individuals, low socioeconomic to cash paying clients. And so I've had a variety of uh, interactions and the ability to provide services. I was at a middle school, so 7th and 8th graders. I was doing therapy with them. So I have a variety of experience. And so it's just such a privilege and an honor to be able to provide that type of care here to our community members of Selma. What else to say now? Any questions for me at all?
I know you're new in the position. What do you see as like a future goal? I mean, 6 months down the road, what do you envision?
Definitely. So I would envision that this position, because it's in the social work world, we usually have either you're a case manager and you're just giving those resources, or you're a direct service provider. And there's a disconnect sometimes from the crisis intervention and all of that stuff that takes place. And so my goal in the next 6 months is to really help mitigate those crises that are coming in to the ED. Our 5150 holds. So in a couple weeks, I'll be trained and hopefully be able to place holds and lift holds. Sometimes we have individuals who, it's awesome that we have law enforcement to place those holds, but they're also they're not trained in some of the dynamics of the psyche. And so so my goal is to help assist law enforcement that they don't have to necessarily make all of those calls themselves. Obviously, if they need to put the hold, they definitely can. And but a partnership with law enforcement, with individuals in the community. When I'm present in the ED, I can assist in that. And so my goal is to really help those individuals who they're in crisis. They're in moments and difficulties in their lives. And sometimes in the moment they say, yeah, I want help. But maybe just the wait time to receive those services is lengthy. And so the goal here is that they don't have to wait necessarily 6 weeks out to receive a service. My caseload will be built a lot from the clinic that I'm working at, and then also from the ED. And so getting them some services right away and start working on some of those incidences or traumas that have brought them to the ED in crisis. So my goal is to help get them services as quickly as we can and start working on some of that stuff that can get resolved to give them greater resources, greater tools, building up their toolboxes.
A question.
Yeah.
Are you, Adventist Health, are you guys tracking and keeping data? So, at a later date, you guys can present us with some information?
Absolutely, yes. And so the moment I was able to see clients face to face, we created a tracking system, and, you know, tracking demographics, tracking date of birth, city of residence, tracking how often do they come into the ED? Are they a frequent flyer, or is it just the first incident? And so just a lot of those measures to see the trends to hopefully figure that out. And then also the are they coming to in? The nice thing is like I'm in both places, so then I know if they came to their appointment or not, instead of having to try to get a hold of someone else and get back. Did they come? Did they not come? So yes, tracking those both in clinic and in the ED.
I remember one of the good things was, if I remember this, is that once the client comes in or the patient comes in, you guys were going to follow the patient out of the
Yeah.
hospital and follow them. Were you guys gonna follow them in their private life too and link them to services?
So the goal would be that I would actually be the service provider because I'm licensed, so I can do
Right.
the case management in the ED. Then once from there, I can offer them the direct service of, hey, would you like to do therapy with me?
Okay,
And I can get you in.
okay,
You don't have to wait 8 weeks. In my clinic days, I can actually treat you and see you.
okay.
And so that has been successful so far in some of the patients that I've met with in the ED, and they've come to the clinic and they've seen me and we're working on stuff.
So you would have a caseload.
Correct.
So what's your maximum caseload?
We're figuring that out right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you guys are tracking diagnosis like mental health, substance abuse, dual diagnosis, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So ideally in the ED, we kind of came up with a list of people who would qualify for these services if they're coming in with a crisis or they're a hold, if they're coming in with a co-occurring disorder with substance abuse, if they're coming in regards to domestic violence or an assault. And so obviously these people would be good participants for this
Right.
service.
Okay.
And if they're connected elsewhere, just encouraging them to get connected, make an appointment, and providing them resources out in the community as well if they don't feel like it's a good fit and they're not interested. But the goal would be to help get them services if that's something they're wanting.
Okay, that's great. I don't have any.
One thing before you came on board, when we were talking about the whole partnership, my concern was having it available to all community and not just, let's say, patients of Adventist. So my hope was that at some point, I think Dr. Ayala had mentioned too, that he'd be like reaching out to the school system
Oh,
and, having meetings so at least like making sure the kids know that you're there if they need help and that we've helped to fund that part of it.
I can't speak too much to that necessarily conversation. I don't know much about that, but I do know, like, for instance, I have someone on my case who's a minor, right? And so, as when they come in, I'm treating everybody. There's not a specific age group that I won't treat. Whether or not we've let all the school districts know, like, hey, like, or the schools let them know we have a resource available. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it'd be a good idea. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I know we had mentioned community involvement and how that should be a focus. Definitely the hospital presents that challenge because we take everyone that comes in, but that's certainly something we can work with our marketing group and specifically inform the counselors on the campuses here locally to let them know that these services are available. So let me run that by Dr. Ayala and the actual clinic. I believe we have a meeting scheduled at the end of the month, which you all have been invited to. And I'll have some more information on what that marketing might look like, but we'll certainly push for that. That's a great idea. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Mr. Chair, it's within the chair's discretion to reorganize the agenda, and perhaps because we have so many members of the audience, what we could do is move the closed session down and item number 10, down to after the other action items. If that's okay, and then we'll go into closed session, take action on item 10.1, and then next meeting date and adjourn after that.
Yeah, I agree. But instead of keeping everybody waiting.
Mhm.
Perfect, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, with that said, we'll move on to item number 10, action items. And we'll start with the action.
Thank
item
you.
Number 2. Yeah. Consideration of audit, and Mr. Jackson, this is you. Yes.
That better? Okay, we come from a firm that operates out of Fresno, Utah, and Texas. There's several of us. All we do is healthcare. And in fact, I probably, up and down California, I think I've been in just about, probably 75 hospitals that we've audited over the years. We started off with Ernst & Ernst, which is now Ernst & Young, up in the Fresno office. In fact, we used to audit the hospital, name from the past here. Rich Phillips was your CFO back in the 80s. We audited Selma, the hospital here then. We also audited when San Juan Garza was here. I don't know if you guys know that name. Jerry Sullivan was the director. Okay. It's been some time. But we were here when actually when Adventist took over the operations of the hospital. I probably audited probably 3,000 audits of hospitals up and down the valley at one time or another. And like I said, we've been doing this for about 45 years. We audit also a number of what they call FQHCs, which are federally qualified health centers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those or not. Over the years, what we have seen a lot of healthcare districts in California that used to operate hospitals that have turned them over. A lot of them to Seventh-day Adventists, like Tehachapi, Tulare now. We've been involved with Tulare for some time, Tehachapi also. We're still involved with Kingsburg. We've done over Sierra Kings, in Reedley, Alta Hospital, if you remember Alta over in Dinesba. Anyway, what the pattern has been is that some of these hospitals, of course, there's still a few that operate hospitals like Lompoc over in Lompoc Hospital, healthcare district, but it still operates the hospital. Hazel Hawkins over in Hollister, they still operate the hospital. These are healthcare districts. But a lot of healthcare districts no longer will operate the hospitals. And they typically there's several types of formations that have happened. Some have actually sold the hospitals, some retain the hospitals and rent them out. There's just a number of ways that they do it. And a lot of the healthcare districts, since they're no longer operating hospitals, they have evolved where several of them have started what we call like rural healthcare clinics. I think Taft side down in Taft has done that. Mark Twain up in San Andreas has done that. So it's an option that a lot of healthcare districts are getting into, where they operate rural healthcare clinics. Because you are still getting the property tax money related to healthcare in your healthcare district. That's one of your goals, is to provide some form of community service via healthcare to the community. So with that said, let me go over this financial statement. This is in a format that, let me describe it. There are several sections to it. The first one, page 1 and 2 is what we call, and 3 is what we call the opinion.
I don't think we have a copy of that. We have the engagement agreement, but from May 2023, but I don't see the statements here.
You got the 2 copies in? Okay. All right. 23, June 30, 23. So as a healthcare district, okay, these are the basic financial statements that almost every healthcare district in California adheres to. The first 3 pages is an opinion by the auditors. You have a clean opinion. Then on page 4, because you are page 4, 5, 6, and 7, because you are a government entity, a political subdivision of the state of California, you are required in your financial statements to produce what they call a management discussion and analysis. Basically, all it is just a financial summary of what occurred during the past year. And I'm not going to go over that in detail. You can read that later. You have 3 basic financial statements. Starting on page 8 is your balance sheet. It's called the statement of net position. It's basically very straightforward. It's your balance sheet is basically made up of cash. On occasion, you may have some liabilities, but it's fairly rare. And then you have what we call your net position. So as of June 30, 23, your total assets is cash of 483 and some district tax receivables that haven't come in yet that belong to the 23 year of 17,000. And then your equity position basically is the 501. The next statement on page 9 is again a very basic statement. This is your income statement. It's called the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. And if you look at the 3rd line from the bottom, your income is called increase in net position. Basically, your income for the year last year was 62,000. This year, 124,000. Basically made up of your district tax revenues, less some expenses. And then finally, the final statement that's required is what they call the statement of cash flows on page 10. Again, this is just a very straightforward statement that tells you, all right, where does your cash come from and how is it used in the operations of the district? And again, I'm not going to go over that too much. And then finally, the financial statements. You have notes to the financial statements starting on page 11. Very basic footnotes with that relate to healthcare districts. The final opinion is one that's required for government entities, starting on page 15. It's just a statement that talks about internal controls. These are very basic, very straightforward. There's not a lot of fluff to them, you might say. We do have other healthcare districts, such as, want to give you an example, Peninsula up in the Bay Area. Their financial statements probably cover about 50 pages. And it's a healthcare district. And so healthcare districts in California, actually, they can do a number of things. And so yours is at this point in time very basic. So any questions about your financials?
So with this, we are current as far as the.
You're current, yeah.
Current, okay, auditing.
Yeah, the next audit will be June 30th, 24, which you're required every year from the state of California to have an annual audit. And so you are current, yeah.
Good.
Any questions from the board?
I was looking on page 6,
Page 6.
operating expenses. And I noticed that there was a decrease of 66,513. Okay, never mind, I was reading it wrong. I'm okay, I was reading something wrong.
Yeah, if you go to page 9, you can see that decrease. In the expenses, the very first line item under expenses,
Mhm,
where it says donations to community organizations.
right,
Last year, 99,000, this year, 33,000.
okay.
So.
And on the same page on 9, 2022, we had professional fees for 31,000. And we were sending out donations of 99,000. And this year we have 30,000. Like the professional fees just went down about 1,000, but donations to community is 30, it went down significantly, but we're still maintaining more or less the professional fees. Is that correct?
Right, yeah, typically that's audit fees, legal fees, things of a professional nature.
Okay.
Does that factor in the significant contribution to Adventist? As in, because that alone was $100,000. But may not be factored in, or it may be broken by the fiscal year in terms of how it's reflected on the statements.
We do have a healthcare district up in the Bay Area, Alameda, that the hospital took over the healthcare operations there. And they probably garner close to 5 or 6 million a year in property taxes. The majority of that they send right over to the hospital. So help the hospital in their operations. So I'm not sure how Seventh-day Adventist is doing. They up and down the state, we run into them all the time, and I think they do pretty well.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public in regards to the audit? Jim? Okay, then we get a motion to accept the audit.
We make a motion to accept the audit.
Oh, it's all accepted?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all.
Same here.
I'm gonna head home.
Chair, on item number 3, it's our recommendation to continue based upon the determination that you make for item number 1. Advice would be to continue to the.
Okay. So item number 3, budget approval for 23-24. We're going to continue that to the next meeting.
But we're tabling it, right?
Yep.
Tabling it.
Tabling, yeah.
Yeah.
Item number 4, proposal from ESYN.
Better? Hi, I'm Roxanne. This is Charlotte. We're from ESYN Exceptional Sports for Youth with Needs. And we provide sports and activities for our kids and adults with disabilities. This will be our 8th year in August, and you guys have given us money to help support these kids to do soccer, bowling, go to the Project Surf Camp in Morro Bay, all different activities that Charlotte has a poster that we would like for you guys to see our kids doing all the events that you're allowing us to do. Past, you guys have recommended us doing fundraisers, and so we are doing more. We're having our first chicken dinner fundraiser this month. Along with our Halloween raffle tickets, and we are going to partner up with the martial arts here in town. And also there's this rolling skating rink in Clovis that they do fundraisers as well for nonprofit. So we are trying to get more money and not just count on Selma Healthcare. So our proposal was to get help with the bowling registration, Spirit Horse in Kingsburg, the paddleboard surf camp, and hip hop dance.
Those numbers are for Selma residents only.
And each time that I ask the treasurer to pay us, I give her a list of all the Selma residents, the name, addresses, and phone numbers attached to all the invoices I turn in.
Thank you. Do you see the number of kids increase, or is it about the same?
No, increased. So we just had our soccer registration, our soccer league, and we had 50 kids that registered, little over 30 from Selma. And we're going out in the community and going to parent information nights and things like that to let people know who we are and what we do. At our end of soccer on Sunday, we had around 170 people. 50 kids, and rest were parents and families that enjoy watching the kids play.
The bowling will still be at the Selma Bowling Alley,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
It's a good program for the kids. And a little bit different because you have more kids, but I mean, that's expected. Amount is for 4,451.70. That's what you guys are asking for?
Yes. And I just had a quick question. That $5,000 is the max, correct?
Correct.
Are there any other, like, other grants through the board besides this micro grant? Like if we needed more money for send more Selma kids to bowling or surf camp or things like that, is there ever an exception?
I believe we set the cap at 5. I don't know if we,
Okay. I was just
yeah,
clarifying.
currently,
Okay.
Right.
Asking.
It never hurts to ask, right? I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
yeah. Yeah, so we first and second. Yep. Like to open it to the public for any comments this time? Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right,
Opposed? Pass, thank you.
thank you,
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, item number 5, on our action item list, a proposal from Selma Little League.
John Reese, President, Selma Little League. So you guys should have our invoice for for first aid kits. This is just really basic stuff that we needed. It's actually mandatory, the first aid kits, and the defibrillator. Last year we came in and we actually got granted a defibrillator, but we just didn't follow through with getting the invoice for it. This year we did. So that's the biggest thing on our proposal today. Any questions or?
Right, because we did grant the amount for the first aid kits and the defibrillator. Did we not get a, we
I'm
didn't
not
get
sure
a
what
check?
happened.
Oh.
I'm not sure.
They
No, we never.
They never came to
with
pick
the
up the
invoice.
check.
Yeah, we never picked
It
up the
was
check.
granted.
Yeah, it was
um,
granted, but we never came and picked up the check, I don't believe.
Probably don't, do you remember you,
Mm-hmm.
for first aid kits in the ADA? And
So it's first aid kits and then the 40 or the ice packs. Those are the, the compressed ice packs. We have a hard time with that because the coaches, they always want to come to the snack bar and get a bag of ice. And they need to have that in the dugout.
So why didn't you guys come pick it up if it was granted?
This is a new board. Last year was a different board. I was vice president last year and I'm not exactly sure. I know when we came in, when we originally came in, we didn't have all of our ducks in a row. We didn't even have a proposal. I don't think we were on the schedule. Kind of came in backwards, and then I don't think we ever got a proper invoice, but it was granted. But this year, I hope I got everything correct. I worked hard on it.
No, you did good. You actually have a cost savings, so this last year's amount was a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's
my
good.
safety guy, he's got a connection with the safety
Oh, nice.
distributor.
Great, great. Any comments from the board?
I make a motion to approve.
second, yep.
Any public comments this time? Nope. That's it. Let's take a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Pass, thank
Can you
you.
guys please
Congratulations.
pick up the
Yes, thank you.
check
Thank you
this
for-
time?
All right, item number 6, discuss topics for 2024 board initiative. Last year was our first board-led initiatives, which we chose mental health. This year, do we have any other interests?
I just wanted to reference one thing is that to remind the board, the concept behind the district-led initiatives is to do sort of the big stuff. And if you recall, each recipient of a district-led initiative is required to, at a minimum, match either in cash or in in-kind contributions, the contribution made by the district. And it's done on an annual basis. And it's really designed for a specific healthcare type initiative that you feel meets the qualifications that you've set, and that in which you're leveraging district money to provide a greater service, much like which you experience with Adventist in providing a behavioral health component, which they did not have, and now they have really because of this district.
To start it off, I would like to continue this year with mental health as our board-led initiative and put a request for proposals out to see if there's any other organizations that have proposals for us, as well as Adventist. They can submit a proposal as well to enhance what they're already doing. I know they're just getting started at the hospital. So I'd like to continue. That's my thought. What are your thoughts, board?
Yeah. Definitely. Getting into the schools.
I totally agree with that. I think also, substance abuse and co-occurring disorders. That's a big thing, but it also starts with mental health. So, but I would really like to see something like that incorporated.
You're just discussing what district initiative you want to focus on. So what would happen is that your staff would then release a request for proposals based upon the subject area that you recommend. And I think that historically we've limited it. Well, historically, there's not much history, it's 1 year, but we've limited it to 2 concepts. But last year you focused in, you narrowed in on behavioral health. With substance abuse, it seems like a different concept, but certainly you could ask that if you're interested in both, you could ask that the behavioral health component include substance
Yeah.
abuse potentially.
I think
as
that would
as a
be great.
possible concept, if that's what you want to do.
Mhm. Because it all starts with mental health. I mean, you don't get to that without something happening that causes, but yeah, mental health is a number one. Do we want to wait to get Danny's?
I don't think we can wait. I mean, if we're here, we can make a decision or get the RFP going, because I know the reason Adventist is just starting, it was because we started kind of late in the
Yeah.
year. I think it was like June by the time they got the word that, okay, you guys are it, you got it. So if we wait another 3 months, I think, for a vote, but I would like to start now to
Okay,
get the proposal out there, and then the organization can start putting their proposals together.
okay.
And hopefully the next time we meet, we have proposals coming in.
Well, how would the RFP go out?
The way we did it last year was it went out, it was sent to different organizations,
Mhm.
and then it all is also included on the website. So, and certainly Adventist is not prohibited from submitting a proposal, and they're not prohibited from expanding the services that they provide.
Before the RFP goes out on the website or out to anyone else, can the board see a copy of it before it goes out?
Yes, so the way it would happen is that your staff would have to meet with you and brief you on it. There are some limitations under the Brown Act that you can't
Right,
do like
right.
collective concurrence, meaning
Right.
like you can't your staff can't say, get the approval from each board member, but certainly they can go through it with you and take input as they prepare.
Okay.
Ken, on that, for the proposal or the initiatives that we did last year, Danny and I were on the,
The review panel.
The review panel. Is that open to chair and somebody else this time? I can take a step back and give somebody else. an
Totally
opportunity.
your call. It just has to be limited to two because otherwise we have a Brown Act issue. We have a quorum.
At what point in the process would we determine
Not a
who?
bad idea to do it now.
Yeah. I'm willing to take a step back and then have Chair Seremian, and is anybody interested in being on that?
I think you need to be on that.
All right. All right, thank you. Are we ready to vote as mental health with the emphasis in,
Extending services, yeah,
okay. How do we want to word that?
I don't know.
Could I ask some clarification on that? Because if you get a mental health proposal that doesn't expressly mention substance abuse as a possible recipient of service, are you still amenable to that? I mean, should the RFP be drafted to say mental health services, the board expresses a desire in addition to substance abuse within that, the RFP, but I guess the question is, if substance abuse is not included, does that prohibit your consideration of the proposal? Because in my experience, based upon the fact that last time we only had one proposal, we want to make sure that you're casting a wide enough net. Certainly can mention it in detail in the RFP, but I just want to make sure if it's your intent to vote at the next board meeting, you may not have that freedom to, if it's not otherwise included in the proposal. Does that, I want to make sure that makes sense, because otherwise what would happen is if it's not mentioned and you wanted it there, you'd probably have to wait to the following meeting to adopt it if you decide to ease up on the requirement. So my thinking is the RFP should say focus on behavioral health, mental health services with specific emphasis, if possible, on substance
Yeah,
abuse.
that sounds perfect. That sounds
Yeah.
good to me.
I agree. Like, we're in agreement. Time to take a vote.
If you want to open it to the public, you can.
Sorry. Any public comment on that? This side.
Teresa Herrera, 3526 Hill Street. A real quick question. Do you have to put it out to RFP? Like, why can't you give Adventist more time? It seems like they barely got the contract and they don't even have a track record to see how they're doing. So my question is, could you just say, let's give Adventist one more year and then put it out for bid? I don't know, just asking. Because I just feel like they haven't done the work to say, yeah, they're doing a great job. It's just not enough time.
Thank you. I agree. I think they're just getting started. But the agreement and partnership we have with them is going to continue on for that year timeframe from when they started. So if they choose to partner or submit a request to partner for another year, they'll submit one. And then we'll go off of what their new proposal is. Maybe it's in addition to some enhancements and, from what they're doing now, or something different. We'll see what they come with, and then hopefully they come with, enhancements, but other organizations might come also. Good point. Any thoughts from any? Any other public comments? We want to take a vote on the wording. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion.
A second. Yep. And how should we word that?
Oh, so the motion is just to release another RFP with emphasis on behavioral health and a specific recognition if possible on substance abuse. And
He
it'll
said.
come back to you at the next meeting.
What he said.
Oh, you'll work on putting the paperwork together?
I
for
will,
that-
I
that
will.
draft?
And depending on the outcome of your first item, you may not need me as much.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Vote.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chair, then we would go into closed session and under the Brown Act, if you, when you go into closed session, you ask if there's any public comment before going into closed session.
Is there any public comment before we go into closed session?
I need to
Okay, we are back from closed session. There is no action to report. Mr. Chair, I believe we're on action item 10-1, which is consideration of hiring of contract executive director.
Correct. We just put up for a vote? I'm sorry.
You want me to kind of go through?
Yes.
So the district in closed session had an opportunity to interview Mr. Dave Fye, the former executive officer of Fresno LAFCO. And Mr. Fye would be engaged by the district at a initial rate of not to exceed $4,000 a month. Subsequent months would be not to exceed $3,200 a month. We would prepare an independent contractor agreement. And so those would be the terms of the engagement. It would be appropriate if you wanted to, if Mr. Fye wanted to say a few words about himself or during, on the record.
Great. Okay. David, would you mind?
Not at all. Good evening, Board. My name is David Fye, and I've had a career in land use planning. I was a planner with the city of Fresno, the city of Clovis for 12 years each. I've had time to work on the private side in land use planning, working with communities up and down the valley, and was the executive officer for the Fresno Local Agency Formation Commission as kind of a capstone to my career. And in that capacity, I worked with cities and special districts, performing municipal service reviews and getting them, if they needed it, to improve and become more efficient. And if they didn't need it, we did our report and moved on. There's no sense in making work for anybody. I retired about 1.5 years ago and was soundly asleep when Ken called me and asked if this is something that I'd be interested in. I came to your board meeting last month, and I've also spent a great deal of time on your fine website looking at the record, watching videos from past meetings. And it would be a pleasure and an honor to serve the district in a capacity as the executive director. I think this is something that is right up my alley. Although healthcare districts would be new, I'm gonna spend a lot of time in the initial period getting familiar with not just this district, but healthcare districts in general, and finding ways to recommend to this board how to improve its operations, become more streamlined, and also to work well with the community. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open it up for public comments or a comment on the Zoom. Any? No comments at this time.
I make a motion.
Sorry, I second.
The motion would be to engage Mr. Fly at the terms that I described.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Aye. Just kidding.
All right, with that. Next meeting, we'll pick a meeting for next, or
Did you want to have a special meeting, potentially, perhaps, Dave and Debbie could circulate like a doodle poll or something to
Yes.
schedule that?
yes. Would like to, yeah, before our next regular scheduled meeting, we're talking a special meeting. After that.
Well, you have my schedule, right? Okay.
Okay, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.